Today I'm talking to Justin. Justin was suffering from fatty liver disease. In fact, 81% of his liver was either fatty or fibrosis. Justin went on the carnivore diet, and in today's interview, we'll talk about the results. Just before we get started, guys, please smash like and also please subscribe. This really helps out the channel and it helps me to be another voice out there talking about the carnivore diet. Let's meet Justin. How did you find the carnivore diet and how long have you been doing it?
Well, Dave, this actually marks my 2-year anniversary. I started July of 2021. And everybody I talk to, they kind of glaze over when I tell them this story, but I sort of started carnivore by complete accident. I had been struggling for several years with some gastro issues. Not uncommon for somebody who was in their mid or later 40s, just some typical things. Indigestion when I'd eat, heartburn, those types of things. And I had seen the doctor and seen a specialist, and I was given some medication for the gastro. I think they refer to it as acid reflux. I believe the technical term is GERD, GERD, et cetera. We were working through it with some medications, and come the summer of 2021, actually, I was getting ready to go on vacation. We were heading to upstate New York to visit the Great Lake area. We were going from Pennsylvania here where we live to Lake Erie for a few days, then across to Lake Ontario, then down to where the Erie Canal is in upstate New York. So we were planning a week's vacation. And the night before we left, actually, one of my daughters and I were outside getting our RV ready to leave the next morning. And my wife had prepared it was like a chicken and noodle dish. She was taking some over to friends of hers. And she said to me, "Hey, I have your dinner on the counter before you get done tonight. Go ahead and eat." And I went in and had that chicken noodles, and it was something I'd had, thousands of times. And I ended up with, this real bad pain in my chest. And I mean, I knew it was acid reflux or something of that matter, but it was almost beyond what it had been before. And I told my daughter that was with me, I said, if I wouldn't known that I was getting this heartburn, I would think I was having a heart issue as quickly as it came on. So that subsided. We left on our vacation the next day, and we drove from, we're just a little bit south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We drove up to Lake Erie, 3 hours towing our camper, give or take. And we stopped in a campground and we set up, and in our refrigerator in the trailer was cans of ginger ale. And so I set up the trailer and I went in, I got a can of ginger ale, and I took a couple swigs of that ginger ale, and same pain. Couldn't explain it. It was different than it was before. And I ended up just not feeling well that entire trip, to the point that I ended up, for the week or so that we were on the road, I ended up not really eating for that time. And the best thing I could do was just simply, I guess this would be my first official fast. I didn't realize I was doing it, but it was my first fast. And I just would drink, and it would feel good as long as I didn't put anything on my stomach. And then as soon as I would try to eat something, didn't matter what it was, I would have that same reaction. So obviously, I have an absolutely wonderful family physician here. Close family friend. I've been with him for probably over 25 years. Amazing, amazing doctor. And I called him as soon as I got back, and he's like, "Okay, let's figure out what's going on." So we did our typical standard blood tests, and it came back that my liver numbers were just beyond sky high. I mean, with 5-6 times what they should be on the top end. And he immediately referred me to a gastroenterologist for a follow-up. And in the process, we had found that I had fatty liver disease. And I think some of the comments you and I've talked about before, that was the main thing that caused it. Now, what was interesting is the more I researched this and the more I talked to the doctors, especially through the testing process we went through, not many people with fatty liver disease ever know that they have it. It's sort of silent. I was one of the lucky few, I guess, that had the physical issues that made me go seek treatment. So well, make a long story short, we went through treatment or the testing process. Ultrasounds confirmed that I had fatty liver disease. In fact, I remember these numbers specifically. 81% of my liver in testing was either fatty or fibrous. I had had it apparently long enough that a certain percentage of my liver was starting to already turn fibrous. And it had affected my function to the point that even normal digestion of what I was used to, I could not do anymore. So in this process, taking a step back a little bit, during that week we were on vacation, my oldest daughter, who's 17 now, she'll be 18 this year, she was doing some online research, and she said, Dad, did you notice that every time you eat something that has carbs in it or sugar, you're having this problem? And I said, I never really thought about it that way. And sure enough, we did a little bit of our own experimentation at home, and every time I'd have sugar, it would be, no matter what form, I would have a reaction to it. And through the process, we ended up, really narrowing it down mainly to gluten. In fact, I can tell you today I've been officially diagnosed with a gluten allergy. Probably have had it for a number of years. And as we go along with the interview today, I can talk about some other things that have changed once I got on Carnivore. But probably had it for years and never knew it. So that was the starting point of the carnivore diet. I sort of got there accidentally because in this process, through the testing and the time that we were looking into this, the only thing that I really could tolerate was certain meats. I could do chicken, I could do beef. Those wouldn't bother me. So that's really what I sort of went to when I was hungry. So when I finally got through the ultrasound process and the blood testing, and I met with the gastroenterologist again, he said, I'm going to tell you, there's no pill that I can give you that's going to fix this. You have to do this through diet. And he got this very serious look on his face. He said, the best thing that I can recommend to you would be a ketogenic diet. And I said, well, doctor, I've been doing it on my own now for probably 4 or 5 weeks it took for us to get through the testing process. He said, well, that's great. He said, so let's talk about what you're doing. And I was amazed because, when we read online about traditional medical doctors and the reaction to the ketogenic diet or carnivore diet, we're expecting that, somebody's going to tell me that I shouldn't be doing this. And not only was he all for it, he also himself did intermittent fasting. And so we had a really great dialogue about how he did things and how I was going to do them. And so that would have been, I think I talked to people about my official anniversary date as being July 18th of 2021. And so it's just about 2 years from where we are right now. By Christmas of 21, I had already lost 30 pounds. I had my follow-up blood tests and scans in January of 22. My blood test already by January had shown that my liver enzymes were already dropped to almost normal range. By June of 22, my fatty liver disease was completely reversed. My liver enzymes are perfect. And I actually have a blood test dating back to 2017, where it's been showing like a little gradual climb here, and nothing, outrageous, but enough to show that things were happening for several years. But within 1 year's time, exactly, the fatty liver disease was completely gone. And my follow-up ultrasound at the time, not only did it show that the fat had been removed from my liver, the fibrosis, there's no sign of fibrosis. And at the time when I first met with the gastroenterologist, he said, that's the one thing I'm not sure about. So I guarantee you can burn the fat off your liver. He said, but I'm not sure about, I don't know if you're so far gone yet with this fibrosis that if it will go back or not. And thankfully it is totally clear. So that was a year ago. In July of 2022, I actually hit my lowest weight ever in my adult life. I was about 204 pounds. Down from, I think when I started, I was about 252, 253. So right around 44, 45 pounds, give or take. And I've stayed there. In the years now, in year 2, I may vary at the most, maybe 2-3 pounds from that up or down either way. I think this morning when I weighed myself, I was around about 208, give or take. So it stays right in that ballpark. Everything checks out now. my labs are perfect by definition, with one little minor exception. We'll talk about that later, which is my cholesterol. But we'll discuss my thoughts on that in a little bit. But that's really my carnivore start and my journey. And here I am 2 years later speaking with you. And I've never been more excited to share information on something like this with anyone before.
Nice. So you've lost the weight, of course, reversed the liver disease. It's awesome to hear the fibrosis is gone. What else has changed for you as far as in day-to-day basis?
Okay, so I'm 47. I'm almost 48 years old. I'll be 48 years old in October. There were many things that were going on over the course of the last maybe 10 years that had started, maybe 15 years looking back, that I just equated to age. We talked about my issues with my digestive system and those types of things. But my job, actually, I'm a music teacher, and I play piano probably 6, 7 classes a day, some days 8 classes a day. And when I was maybe 38, maybe 10 years ago, 38, 39, something like that, I noticed that my hands would be sore at the end of the day. And that was, so the onset of arthritis. And by my maybe 41, 42, I was taking things like Motrin or Tylenol daily just to make my hands feel better when I was at work. I've been an avid gym. I would call myself a gym rat. I started exercising when I was 16 and, lift weights, and I'd run and I'd bike and do those kind of things. And, in my early 40s, and we think, well, we're maybe getting a little older. My early 40s, I, found myself not able to run as well as I used to. I'd run, I'd jog, and then my knees would hurt or my hips would hurt or things like that. And fast forward 2 years into carnivore, it's gone. I mean, I'm talking, I couldn't tell you the last time I took an anti-inflammatory or a over-the-counter pain medicine. My arthritis is completely gone. I sort of experimented a little bit with my food intake, and I kind of have a pinpoint of what causes that for me, and we can discuss that a little bit further into detail. But that's one thing that really changed. The arthritis is gone. My sleep. I was an insomniac for many, many years. I'd be up till, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning staring at the clock, and then, having to get up at 5 a.m. to get ready for work. And many times I would take things like melatonin or something to get myself to fall asleep. And then I don't know if you've ever had to experience that, but you fall asleep, but you don't feel good then the next day. And a couple of months on carnivore, and it's gone. I mean, I can honestly tell you that I sleep better now than I ever did before, but I sleep less. I probably only need maybe 5 hours of sleep a day. And I feel refreshed and ready to go for the next day. So the arthritis, the sleep, energy. I work out daily still, as I did when I was a young kid. Probably stronger and faster now than I was, in my 30s. And energy to do stuff like take my dog out for a walk. Seems like an everyday thing, There'd be days I'd be like, I just don't want to do this. And now it's just, I look forward to those things and getting out and doing things outside. We have where we live, there's a really long bike trail. It runs from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania down to our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., called the Great Allegheny Passage. And, a couple of days a week, I go down and I jump on the bike trail just to ride because I feel good and I want to be out and I want to do things that, are exciting and energetic and, things that before carnivore, I just really, I not that I wouldn't do them, but they just didn't feel like they do now. So I'm excited to get out and excited to do those kind of things.
That's really interesting because that's kind of the way I feel energy-wise as well. Like it feels like this combination between your body's actually compelling you to exercise, but it's also a feeling of, I actually want to do this. And I've never in my life wanted to exercise.
Well, right. And I will tell you, I've always loved to go to the gym. I'm highly involved with our local YMCA, and we have a fantastic facility. In fact, Saturday morning, I went over and played pickleball. I don't know if you've ever played pickleball. I love it. But it's just a lot of fun. It's like ping pong on a large scale. But yeah, and I feel the same way. And I want to ask you a question. How about your mental clarity? I find that things that used to bother me, or I don't want to use the word obsessed, but like I would have to think about a lot. Now all of a sudden they come just like easy for me and natural, and I'm calm. Do you find that too?
Yeah, I feel like there's probably two things. The first is that things don't bother me like they would have before. I'm able to just kind of, if it's something, that's happening that would have bothered me before, I can always look at it and go, but I can't really change that anyway. So what's the point in letting it bother me? But there's also an ability now to kind of step back a little bit and very kind of quickly in the moment look at something and go, well, let's look at this more kind of at a higher level. And yeah, I can deal with this better now.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating how similar our response to the carnivore diet has been.
Hmm. It's and the more people I talk to, the more I'm finding that, like some people say things, I go, oh yeah. And I hadn't even thought about that. There's a lot of those kind of things that, just talking to other people, it brings out, yeah, that's an improvement I've experienced too.
Sure. And now one of the interesting things, and we were just talking, I thought about it. Um, I what about eating? Like I used to, I don't want to say think about food all the time, but I was always planning for my next meal. And where I work, we have time in the morning that I can get a little snack or some breakfast before the day starts, and we have time in the middle of the day we can have a lunch. And I would spend a ton of time, the night before. Okay, I'm going to take this for breakfast tomorrow. I'm going to take this for lunch. I was never much of a fast food person or stopping at a restaurant. I mean, believe it or not, I actually ate pretty healthy, in the classic terms prior to carnivore. So those really weren't the big deals. But I'd have to have this big breakfast and this big lunch, and now eating is sort of like, yeah, I guess I should do that today. Yeah, is that sort of the way you feel too?
Yeah. I mean, before it was going, it was just what I was eating right now was all it was to hold me over until the next time I was eating. So it's, breakfast, and then it's okay, well, what am I going to eat? What am I going to eat next? Okay, this is going to do me for 2 hours. What am I eating next? And that would just go on throughout the day. So breakfast, I'd be thinking about the snacks. After the snack, I'd be thinking about lunch, and it goes on and on and on.
Oh yeah, if you would see what I would bring to work, I would have, and again, none of it was, quote unhealthy, but I would have a breakfast with traditional breakfast things like eggs and sausage or something. I always did enjoy those types of foods. So the transition to carnivore that in that way was pretty easy for me. But then mid morning, I'd have like a bag of almonds or something. Just something I get to grab a quick snack at 10 a.m. And then lunchtime, I would bring probably leftovers from the night before, whether it was pasta of some sort or roast or something. And sometimes I'd make a salad or those types of things. But yeah, and then as soon as I got home, I get home about 4 to 5 in the evening. I would actually have a snack while I was making dinner, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So I had just eaten it around noon, 12:30, and now I've got something on the stove, or I'm going to put something in the oven, and I'm eating a bowl of you name it while I'm prepping the dinner. Like, so that desire to eat was just constant. And looking back on it, I probably ate 5, 6 times a day. When you included snacks on a daily, everyday basis, that's what I was doing.
And did you find that was, if you compare then to now, what's more expensive?
Oh, by far what we were doing before. Right now, my weekly prep for food is very, very simple. Sundays, usually I will cook, and I'll make maybe 5 pounds of ground beef, put it in the refrigerator. I'll throw some chicken breasts in the Instapot, shred them up, put them in the refrigerator. Have 3 or 4 dozen eggs in the refrigerator, and that's it. And I'll dress those different things up. Sometimes I'll mix the beef and the chicken together, throw some bacon on top of it. That's my meal. And if you figure, yeah, beef's expensive, yes, bacon's expensive, but you're buying it one time. And, I'm not buying the snack packs to stick in my lunch bag during the day, or you name it. Even there were days I'd be going from, like yesterday, you and I talked, I had to go to a meeting at 5 o'clock. I would have stopped at a convenience store on the way to the meeting and picked up something to have with me, because I didn't know if they were serving dinner or not, and they ended up serving dinner. But so just $10 here, $15 here, it really adds up. But with Carnivore, I cook one thing at the beginning of the week and I eat it all week. My shopping list is real simple. We actually buy beef whole now. We have a freezer. We just buy a cow and have it processed, and we put it in a freezer. So that's a one-time expense, and it lasts 6 months, 7 months, something like that. The chicken we buy fresh, the eggs, and then my other two food groups. I think many people say this. I buy a lot of bacon. I buy a lot of butter, and I drink coffee. I mean, that's really sort of that.
Are you eating how are you eating? Once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day?
It depends. It really does. Yesterday ended up being 2 times. I went to that meeting yesterday, and they actually were having it for our 4th of July meeting. They had hot dogs and hamburgers on the grill. I had a hamburger patty, obviously no bun, no condiments, anything like that. And that was probably 5 in the evening. And I ended up having some chicken breasts when I got home, right before bed, maybe 9:30. And that was 2 times yesterday. Today, I'm thinking it's probably going to be once. I got up, I had my coffee this morning, and right before our interview today, this is one of my favorites. Don't laugh at this, but I take just some plain chicken broth. I boil it, and I make my own, essentially like egg drop soup. I'll scramble some eggs and just drop it in while it's boiling, so I had 3 eggs and some broth, and I'm full now. So it's about 5 o'clock here now in the evening. I'm probably done for this evening. We'll see. But yeah, usually 1 or 2 times. I rarely ever eat 3 unless there's some reason. If with my job, I do have a number of, I'll have a breakfast meeting or something. And I can always find something, even when we're out at a restaurant. So, that might be the rare occasion why I might eat 3 times, but generally 2, 1, and I think it's pretty evenly split throughout the week, 1 or 2 times a day.
And how does that work with the way your family's eating? Are your family kind of doing this to a degree, or
well, I want to give a little props out. My wife is fantastic. When I started into the very early stages of Carnivore, she's like, okay, I'm all in. I'm going to do this with you. And I'll tell you a quick story about her. She's 44. She has had hypertension since, I think she was 35 or 36, somewhere in that ballpark. Don't quote me for sure, but severe hypertension to the point like it actually affected one of her eyes. Her vision is never going to be, I believe it's her right eye, never going to be perfect in that eye again because of what the blood pressure did for her. She was on multiple medications. I want to say, and please don't quote me, I want to say 9 months' time, she is completely off of all blood pressure medications and feels fantastic. And she was one of the types that was on multiple medications to get that blood pressure in check. So she's been extremely supportive. Now, the difference between her approach and my approach, she can handle vegetables a lot better than I can. I don't have a fundamental problem with vegetables. In fact, there's certain ones I really like, but I don't do well with them. One of my coworkers asked me one time, why, there's some broccoli here. Why do you avoid it? Well, it just, I mentioned earlier in our interview about my arthritis. I might get away with having some broccoli one time and okay, fine, no big deal. But if I would eat that, say today, and I eat it tomorrow, I can already feel that stiffness in my hands coming back on, or some pains in my shoulders. And it's really hard to explain. if you've never experienced it, but like you can just feel it. You can feel it coming back in. And so it's just easier for me in the long term to just avoid it. I'm actually to the point now metabolically that, if I get a little bit here and there, it doesn't affect me terribly, but I don't make a conscious effort to go and eat a salad or eat a vegetable. Now, getting back to my wife, she can do the classic keto. She can do her salad. She can do the nuts. She does obviously a lot of meat with me. And she has great success on that, and, good for her. But I also think she wasn't quite as metabolically far gone per se as I was when I started this. So I think probably, somebody who's listening to this message and saying, considering it, hey, listen, if you're not truly sick yet and you're trying to prevent some things, you might be able to have a much more loose ketogenic experience than somebody who had to start it because you had to start it. So I think that would be sort of my impression there.
And your daughters, you mentioned at the start that your daughter, your oldest daughter, was the one that kind of did the research for you.
Yeah.
Has that moved her onto this way of eating as well? Or
I'm going to tell you, she is still totally fascinated with carbohydrates. I mean, I won't tell you that we've broken her of that yet. But she's much more conscious. I can tell you that a couple years ago, she would never even look at a steak. We would go out to a nice restaurant, and you'd go to a steakhouse for prime rib or something like that, and she'd order French fries and a pizza, And now we've at least moved her to the point where she, on her own, and she's 17, almost 18. You have to let them experience it. You can't tell them that, because then they'll turn away from it. But now she'll go out, she'll order a steak, she'll order lamb. We do a lot of camping, and one of her favorite things is I'll bring a leg of lamb, and there's a marinade that we do, and she loves it. So I'll do lamb on the grill, and that's her favorite thing. So we're moving her in the right direction, and she recognizes how much better she feels when she's, she hasn't cut out totally the carbs, but she's including some good meat sources in her diet on a regular basis. My youngest one is 8. God love her, she's a pistol. And she wants to do everything that mom and dad does. So for her, it's real easy. She loves everything we make. Being a kid, she still experiences the candy and those kind of things, but she has a much more solid foundation, I think, than my oldest does, because I don't think as parents, we were as aware when we were raising our oldest to what we are now. And my youngest is still young enough that she doesn't really remember what we would cook in the house before dad started this. So it's just second nature for her. Like last night we made, or no, I'm sorry, not last night, night before, it was our 4th of July here, and I made some sausages on the grill. And just right now before we started our interview, before she was pulling them out of the refrigerator, having them as a snack. And I'm like, hey, this is awesome. Most parents are like, okay, trying to get their kids away from the candy, and I have to tell mine to put the sausage away. So we're doing pretty good there.
The good thing, even though your oldest daughter, she may still be quite interested in the carbohydrates and whatever, I think the important thing is that you're leading by example, and so she's getting that. And so at some point in her life, when she goes, you know what, I'm not happy with my weight, or I'm not happy with my energy, or whatever it happens to be, she'll remember, and she'll be like, you know what, that thing worked for mum and dad. Maybe, I'll give that a go.
Exactly. And believe it or not, we're actually experiencing this right now. Now, she's a very, very competitive dancer. Fantastic. We compete all over the place. And she does quite well. This is the first time she has had a chronic issue with her foot. And we've had her to the doctor, had x-rays. They did find a small fracture. Nothing major, but something that she needs to take care of. And it's been lingering a little bit. And we just actually, within the last week or so, had a conversation about, hey, what can I do? Maybe some extra things to help reduce that inflammation and get those things down. And, I'm not saying she's going to follow everything that I've said, but we had a great conversation, one that I actually never expected from her. And then she sees what I believe it or not. Okay, I've probably coined my own phrase here, but I call it carb swell. And I can't explain anything else, but like if you look at my hands, like if I when I start to get this feeling of like arthritic problems coming back in my hands, my knuckles swell, my fingers swell. And I think other people with arthritis or tendency to arthritis have that same issue. And I'll look, if I happen to eat a little bit too much vegetable or something like that, I'll look at my hands and go, oh, here comes the carb swell again. And then, we're equating that to, her foot's still a little swollen. I'm thinking, okay, this is inflammation, whether it comes from an injury or it comes from your diet or how food affects you. So, regulation of that inflammation is so important. So it's opened up some great dialogue with us through this opportunity. Not that anybody wants their child to have an injury, but it's given us the opportunity to discuss this a little bit and, give her some additional information she might need, as you said, later on.
Going back to your doctor, you said your doctor's basically all in with this, right?
Yes.
Your doctor's on a keto style diet as well.
Yes.
So how is your doctor with your numbers? You mentioned the cholesterol is
okay.
A little bit.
So here's the conversation I had with my doctor. So my cholesterol pre-carnivore, I looked up. I keep everything, so I looked it up before we started this interview today. Was total cholesterol 187, but my triglycerides were don't laugh. They were like 550. I mean, my triglycerides were outrageous. My last blood test, my total cholesterol was 224. So it's above that magic 200 number that everybody worries about. But my triglycerides were down fivefold. We're down to 100, actually a little less than 199. And our conversation was, he looked at me, he says, your blood work's perfect. He said, I couldn't ask for anything better. He said, ordinarily I would say, at 224, we should probably start talking about a statin. He said, but I know better, so I'll see you in 6 months and we'll talk about it again. So, I mean, he knew I was going to say no before he ever asked the question. And I actually have a follow-up with him. I have to check my calendar, but later on this month, I think it's later in July or maybe the 1st of August, we'll do blood work again. And I'm sure that number is going to come out in the 200s again, give or take. And I'm going to look at him. He's going to look at me. We're both going to smile, and I'm going to walk out the door because I just, I got this far with this approach, and I've cured so many of my lingering problems. I'm not adding a medication to it, and I don't know enough about it to say that it's not for someone. I'm sure it is for some people in many cases, but it's just not for me. I have to do this way. This is the way I feel good.
Yeah. I'm not a medical professional, so I don't know enough about it either. But I always kind of come back to, this is the best I've felt in my life. This is the oldest I've ever been, obviously,
Right.
and it's still the best I've ever felt in my life. I can't believe that having, say, high LDL or high total cholesterol, whatever it is, that it can be bad for me if I'm feeling better than I've ever felt before.
Well, and especially when you've eliminated so many other things, like my liver disease is gone. I was officially pre-diabetic for a number of years by definition, and that was through fasting blood sugar, not necessarily A1C, but both of those are perfect now. That's gone. My arthritis is gone, and like you said, I mean, I feel fantastic. So based upon how I feel, why would I want to change that? Why do I want to change the way I feel?
And it's really nice that, the doctor, whether your doctor would ordinarily recommend a statin or not, the doctor is, knowledgeable enough to know that you're in a situation where you're not going to accept it anyway. So there's just no point. Yeah.
Right. And again, I'm going to emphasize, like, this individual has been with me for at least 25 years. He was my family's doctor, and he knows my health history. And, I didn't talk about this with you, but my family history, my mother passed away a number of years ago from dementia. I know you've been talking lately about the potential dementia. Both of my mother and father had strokes at a very young age. and my doctor has been very, very invested in, okay, how can I make you as healthy as you can be, long term. So this is not just somebody I've just seen off the street the very first time. He has an investment in my life and my family, and it's nice to have that personal touch. But yeah, I mean, I have a relationship with him in a way that I can talk to him about and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing. And I'm doing it not because I want to be in the latest, greatest fad, because this is what makes me feel the best. And he's all on board. And I actually have another health professional. I have a chiropractor. I actually met him a number of years ago. We work out together. And I don't know what your background is with holistic medicine. And when I was working through that arthritis, aches and pains, and I had some shoulder issues and some knee issues, and he's like, hey, I can fix this. And do a lot of stretching, he does what they call active release technique, ART, I believe is the proper term. Just fantastic. And when you add the diet that I'm on now, whether you want to call it a diet or a lifestyle, the chiropractic care, the exercise that I'm doing, the stretching, the awareness of my age and how important flexibility and movement and things are. I mean, the whole package has come together to just be a win-win for everybody, especially for myself, my family. I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm a better person than I was 2 years ago, just in my energy level, my demeanor, my attitude. We just do so much together now that I feel good about myself, and I just feel good in general.
Nice. So what do friends and co-workers think about this? I mean, do they understand that you're doing something like this, and what's the reaction?
Well, yes, and the first reaction was, as I mentioned to you, I have been heavily involved in exercise and even what I would consider healthy eating by definition. And when you talk about healthy carbs, I sort of get like a little chuckle. Healthy grains, whole grains, those kind of things. But so for many, many years, I was that guy that would get up and go to work, the gym before work, and we'd talk about that, and I would do a lot of physical activity and things like that. And then when I got sick, the first response was, how does somebody who's, quote, taking care of themselves get sick? So that was the first shock that my coworkers and friends went through. And then, when I went full carnivore, there were some people with questions like, well, do you miss things? And I said, no. What about your birthday? Do you have a cake on your birthday? I'm like, no. Why? I said, well, because I don't want to feel like that anymore. And my response to them, and I have the same questions all the time. Don't you get bored with the food that you're eating? No. Don't you, wish you had more variety? No. Does it make you awkward in social situations? No. I mean, I'm a pretty outspoken guy. Like, I can go to a restaurant and say, hey, listen, I want a piece of beef, and don't put anything that resembles a grain on my plate. And if you have like some bacon or some eggs, throw it on the plate, and I'm a happy man. And that's just the way I do it. And now that they've been out with me a little bit and we've done some of these social situations, it's just second nature. This is what Justin's going to do. But, their reaction is, I get a lot of questions. I get a lot of, how did this help you? How did it hurt you? And then I'll get some people, like, they'll say to me, hey, I want to do it, but I don't have your willpower. And that's the one that I'm still stumped with. And I've not figured out the way to sort of break through that. And my approach so far has been, you know what, I don't know how it's going to make you feel, but this is what it's done for me. Just sharing my story. I think that has been the most relaxed thing that I can do. I'm not one that's going to go knock on their door and say, hey, listen, I know you're having this problem. Why don't you do this? Like that's not my personality, but I'm more than happy to entertain the questions and answer the best I can. I've had a few friends that have started Carnivore. One that is, he's a couple years older than me. I think he's 50 or 51. His brother had died of a heart attack a few years ago. Just recently had some questionable blood tests and things from the doctor. And, I got the text message, hey, what are you doing and how do I start? So, I'm walking him through that process. That's sort of where I am. I hope I answered your question. If there's anything I missed, please let me know.
No, you did. And it's really interesting when I think about it. Like, you, some of the things you said made me really think about the situation with friends as well. Like when I think sometimes when friends are like, oh, but how can you only do that? Or are you okay to be in the restaurant when we're eating this or something like that? I think sometimes it can be like they're feeling like, well, it's not a social experience if you're not enjoying the same things as me.
Right.
But I think one of the other things is that they're almost feeling bad because they're in a situation where if they were sitting there not eating the chocolate cake or the brownie or whatever it is, and there's a friend next to them doing that, they wouldn't be able to control themselves, and
Right.
they can't ever imagine a situation that you are in where you can watch that and just feel nothing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that I love the way you said that. I feel nothing. There's no craving for it. There's no jealousy for it. There's no, oh man, do I wish I could have that. Like it, there's, you're right on. There's no effect. It doesn't bother me in any way. And when you say to someone, this doesn't bother, they can't believe that it, you agree? I mean, they just can't believe that you're sitting there saying, this does nothing to me. Go on about your business. I don't care.
Yeah. It's almost like, you've visited a parallel universe and everything is so different. There's just no way you can explain what it's like to other people. They have to go and experience it themselves. There's,
Exactly.
there's just, you can't make someone understand.
No, and the one thing that I'll tell somebody, and one question I'll get is, when you say you feel better, what does that mean? And I say yes. What do you mean yes? Yes, I feel better, and it's not just one thing. Like people think, okay, I have a liver problem, so I cure the liver problem, then I'm better. Well, yes, but then when you realize that your hands don't hurt, and your hips don't hurt, and your knees don't hurt, and you're not hungry anymore, and like the whole gamut of what better is just, it's a foreign concept to somebody who's never experienced that. You know exactly what I'm trying to put into words, like that more holistic, better feeling that you get, or it's, I don't know if I got the right words for that or not, but
Yeah. It's so hard to describe. But also, I mean, one of the things that I've often thought is it it's a little bit too easy for us to forget how bad it was. Um, and I wish I'd documented stuff more, from the way I was before.
I, I
Um,
I saw your video that you put that up just the other day, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, because, and please feel free to disagree with me if I'm not hitting on what you're saying. I didn't realize certain things, right? Did you? Like, you're so focused on one thing, and then something else disappears and you go, I didn't realize it was that bad. Right? I mean, is that how you felt it too?
100%. And it's so cumulative
Yes.
that you just can't keep track of everything. Yesterday, so I'm a teacher as well. I teach English in Japan, and last night, I had this feeling hit me. So when I'm teaching really, really young kids, like we're talking 6 years old, we're sitting on the floor, and there's me and a Japanese teacher, and then there's all the kids sitting in front of us, right? And the way we're sitting, we're in Japan, and because of the cushions you're sitting on, whatever, you're basically cross-legged.
Right.
And when that class was finished last night, I stood up and I put all the stuff away and whatever, and I went to get cleaned up. And I'm thinking to myself, I really need to think about how bad this felt before. Like last time, before I started Carnivore, I would be like struggling to stand up. I would be stiff. My legs had gone to sleep. My back was sore after 50 minutes of sitting on the ground. And I was like, there was this warm up period to get moving again. And like, there's none of that now. I'm just up. It's done, you know?
So raise your hand if you're any of the 40-year-olds that used to have a landing zone to tie their shoes, right? Like, I mean, you'd have to, oh, okay, yeah, just you have to pull your belt up a little bit, and then you get ready, you put your foot up on a stool and you bend over. And, when you teach little kids, like I have elementary level kids too. And man, to bend down to tie a kid's shoe, right? It's something you do every day, all the time. And to not have any effort to bend down to tie somebody's shoes or your own shoes. I mean, that's it. In the music realm, getting on the floor, be familiar with the concept of orff, which is a lot of drumming, a lot of melodic instruments and those kind of things. And, when I trained 25 plus years ago, you did all that stuff on the floor. And I can agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't have to reach over and grab on to a desk to pull myself up now. I mean, I can just get up and down with the kids, which is something I haven't been able to do in years.
Yeah, that's big, isn't it? Not having to stabilize yourself with something all the time, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic, and you didn't even know you lost it. One of my friends, we do a lot of camping, and I pour a trailer with a pickup, and we put all of our camping supplies in the bed of our truck. And I was telling one of my friends recently, I said, there was a time that I could not get in and out of my truck bed without like hurting myself. Sounds crazy, but like I used to be able to, when I was a kid, I used to be able to jump off the back of the truck, go get something, go back in, jump up, jump out. And I got to the point where that would hurt. And now I'm back in and out of the thing like I was 25 years old again. And just never thought I'd have those kind of little moments like that where you go, wow, I can do that again.
For me, Carnivore feels like it's really starting to get a bit of momentum, especially in the last year. And that might just be my bias from being on it for the last year, but especially in the last year, it really feels like it's picking up momentum. Where do you think this is going? Where are we going to be in like 10, 20 years from now?
I think that through people like us, who are everyday people just living their everyday lives and living carnivore, I think we are going to make an impact. I don't know the size of it now, but just by people looking at us and going, hey, there's these two guys in their late 40s and look how good they're doing and look at the stories they're spreading. I think that's going to be part of it. The other thing I think is going to happen is I think we're going to find as a world, people understand a little bit more about proper nutrition. I know you've watched the same doctors on the internet that I have and talking about proper human nutrition. And it's starting to make sense. And I think people are recognizing it where, you look around and you have many, many chronic diseases. You have people that are struggling at much younger ages than they used to be. I think people are going to start to recognize that there's a component to this that we can prevent by just taking a step back and saying, okay, what are we actually putting in ourselves on a daily basis? And I know there's going to be some people watching this video of you and I talking and say, well, I don't know if I'm willing to go full carnivore where all I'm doing is eating meat or meat products. And that's okay. But when you start to recognize, hey, well, maybe I don't need this processed food, or maybe I can do better with a more holistic understanding of what my body needs, as opposed to what I'm being told it needs. I think that's what we're going to see in the next 20 years. Or are we still going to be sort of a niche? Maybe I don't know, but I think it's going to be a much greater representation globally.
Yeah, I've got hopes that at least, going forward in the next 5 to 10 years, carnivore will be a little bit more kind of, normalized the way keto or low carb would be,
Sure. And I wonder if it's the terminology. I represent myself and I say, hey, I'm a carnivore. your channel, No Carb Life, I think it is really. I think you found a niche there. I really like the title of your channel, because No Carb Life and carnivore, when you have those people that are sort of borderline, when you label something as carnivore, you get these certain images, right? Well, it's nothing that is label worthy per se. This is all we're doing is we're living a extremely low carb life, a no carb life from day to day, and this is just what we do. And it's not an approach like Atkins was, or the South Beach diet, or what. I mean, you just fill in the blank of what those diets are. This is just a lifestyle that we've adopted that makes us feel the best. And maybe, again, I no judgment on this either way, or no effect on it. But sometimes it's just your approach, right? When you present something of, hey, this is how we do this, and our lifestyle is eating animal-based food products. That's what we do, and fresh food, and that makes us part of this carnivore community. I think maybe the people that have, the reservations about it, or the I don't want to call it a stigma. I mean, I don't know if we have a stigma or not. I really don't pay attention to those kind of things, but it might be help in breaking that barrier a little bit, just the way we present it to others.
Yeah, it's interesting how those like labeling things in different ways can completely change people's perspective on things. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So someone comes to you, one of your friends has come to you, they want to they want to know, what do I do? You've the last few years you've gotten so healthy, you're looking so much better. I want to do the same. What do you recommend to them?
First and foremost, fresh food. That's step one. Fresh food that you cook yourself. You're not buying from a restaurant. There's a time and place for restaurant meals. I'm lucky enough to be able to navigate that when needed. But start from the basics. You're cooking food that what it is, simple ingredient things, and you're cooking it yourself. And it makes you understand a lot more of what you're actually using is your source of nutrition. Step two, the grains have to go, and that's tough for a lot of people. But the grains, the gluten, the corn, the rice. I hate to say it, but I don't see where long term, maybe short term, maybe here and there, that kind of thing for some people might work. But you have to, when you're getting those huge spikes in your blood sugar that comes from eating those types of those things, that's the second and biggest thing that needs to go. And then just let your body dictate, right? I mean, my process was very easy. I sort of am lucky that I know when I'm hungry and what I'm hungry for, and it just happens to be meat or eggs or something on that order. A lot of people fall into, oh boy, I have to fast today. Why? I know fasting is part of this, right? All of us do it, but I can tell you, 2 years in, I don't set a calendar notification on a day that I want to fast. It just happens. I'll go through a day and go, I wasn't hungry today, and then I'll fast tomorrow. So everybody wants to have a step-by-step plan of how it goes, but sometimes we can make it very simple. Let your body tell you what works and what doesn't. And God bless you if you can eat vegetables on a daily basis. Enjoy. I mean, go right ahead. If you're like me and can't, well, that's fine too. You find what works.
It's a really good way of looking at it, because it really does come down to testing what's working for you and experimenting, right?
Do you ever try certain things? I know you're in, but do you ever try something and it just does not work?
Well, I guess my experience with butter was a little bit like that. I started eating sticks of butter and enjoying sticks of butter, and this is great. I can snack on this whenever I want, but it never stopped. And
Yeah.
that wasn't good for me weight wise or feeling wise,
Sure.
over time.
you had reached the point where you just didn't need that additional fat content
Yeah,
in your diet.
and the trouble was it was just there, and it was so easy to make it into a snack, you know.
Oh, sure, absolutely. For me, and I will admit this, everybody says, "Well, do you have any trouble on carnivore?" Yes, I do, and in fact, one of my biggest things is I easily dehydrate myself now. I do not drink enough during the day. I will be the first one to admit it. And I am a coffee fiend. I love my coffee. I grind my own beans in the morning. I make it in a percolator. Like, I got this system. Here's my coffee, right? And if you allow me to, I will drink coffee from the time I get up in the morning until the time I go to bed. Like, that's how much I just enjoy coffee. And it's usually black. Sometimes I'll put a little heavy cream in it, a little bit of butter, just because I like it. But then I go and wow, I didn't drink any water today. And then you start to feel it, right? Or I'll go a day where I don't eat, and all of a sudden I can feel myself like cramping a little bit or something, like, oh, I got to get myself some salts and electrolytes in me. And so that's sort of my thing. I will tell you this one funny story. So about the end of May, my wife, who I told you previously, she eats more traditional keto. She made this zucchini casserole, and if you looked at the ingredients, I mean, it was all stuff that we could do at this point without really any issue. And you're going to laugh. Everybody tell the story to you, laugh. I normally don't dream, right? I go to sleep, I wake up the next morning, and I'm good, right? So all this casserole was a sliced zucchini, some heavy cream, I think it was mozzarella cheese or some cheese similar to that, and some salt and pepper. She put it in the oven, baked it, come out, and it smelled so good. You've had those experiences, right? It smells so good. And listen, I know what vegetables do to me. I'm not naive. So I'm like, hey, I got to try that. So I had in a bowl, I had a couple spoonfuls. It was fantastic. Like, it was really, really good. I go to bed. I had the worst nightmares. I bet you I haven't had a dream in 15, 20 years. I had the worst nightmares all that night. I woke up the next morning. I said, hey, do me a favor. I said, if I ever tell you that I'm going to eat a vegetable again, would you remind me of this dream that I just had? So, I mean, it's just little things like that where you go like, I needed that reminder that this just isn't for me.
So, Justin, do you have an Instagram or a YouTube or a Twitter where people could get in contact with you?
I do not. I'm really not connected on social media in any ways. The only way that you and I had our first connection is I made some comments on your post. Be more than happy to share my experience with anyone, but I don't have a platform, and I'm not really that tech savvy to really okay, here's my old guy showing, right? I mean, I need to figure out how to do those things. But yeah, I mean, you're welcome to share my contact information with whoever would be interested in it. I'd be happy to help in any way that I can.
Justin, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience with us today. I really appreciate it.
No, it's fantastic to talk to you. And
guys, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.